the role of energy economies in advancing the petroleum sector towards net zero. I can assure you that it's going to be a topic you will not like to miss because of the importance attached to it, particularly as it pertains to making our environment free of air pollutants. Due to the fact that accumulation of greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide and methane, when in the atmosphere, pose significant risks to human health, ecosystems, food security, water resources, and economies. Therefore, net zero is normally considered a crucial goal in limiting global warming to about 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, as recommended by Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC. I can assure you once again that you are going to have a talk. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to you from wherever you are. I warmly welcome you to the 31st edition of the Industrial and Production Engineering Alumni Monthly Lecture Series, commonly called IPAA Lecture Series. This day, 11th April, 2025. Thank you for joining us. By name, I'm Mojisola Bolarinwa, and I shall be the moderator for today's lecture. I urge you to find somewhere to sit and relax, as we are going to have a great time today, considering the topic ahead of us. Our guest speaker for today is no other person than Dr. Kayode Orisharimi, an alumnus of the department. And he shall be doing justice to the topic, the role of energy economies in advancing the petroleum sector towards net zero. I can assure you that it's a topic you would not like to miss because of the importance attached to it, particularly as it pertains to making our environment free of air pollutants. Due to the fact that accumulation of greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide and methane, when in the atmosphere, pose significant risks to our human health, ecosystems, food security, water resources, and economies. Therefore, net zero is considered a crucial goal in limiting global warming to about 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, as recommended by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC. So I'm sure that you're going to have a thought-provoking lecture tonight, but before then, I would like to recognize the VIPs we have in the house. The special guest of honor, Dr. Mercy Iraganachi, the University Librarian for University of Ibadan, Nigeria. The special guest, Mr. Clemson Ayeguse, from the Department of, from the Consulate General, Lagos, Nigeria. The chairman of today's lecture, Professor Anyeche, CEO Anyeche from the Department of Industrial and Production Engineering, as well as all you dignitaries therein from different walks of life. Thank you for joining us today, and I urge you to please stay tuned. As the lecture for today as unfolds, I would like to invite to the house the chairman of today's lecture, Professor C.O. Anyeche, who is a professor of Industrial and Production Engineering, University of Ibadan, and a stint in biomedical engineering. He's also the national chairman, Nigerian Institution of Industrial Engineers, the industrial division of NSC, that is the Nigerian Society of Engineers. He's a registered engineer as well, and he has several publications to his credit. In addition, he has taught many generations of BSc, MSc, and PhD graduates. Professor C.O. Anyeche, sir, I welcome you to today's lecture. Thank you. Please, it's time that the chairman, Professor Anyeche, over to you to give us the opening remarks. Thank you. Let's see. Mr. Chairman, can you please unmute yourself? It's time that you give us the opening remarks.
I've done that. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes,
okay.
Please, the floor is yours. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, our moderator, my emeritus HOD in 2 places. I welcome everybody to today's lecture. In fact, this is one of the activities that has marked out the industrial engineering department. And I can tell you that quite a couple of people are trying to pick and learn from that. So I will thank my HOD because he appears to be the engine driver behind it. Today's lecture is on economics and net zero, a managerial approach for oil-dependent economies. We all know that economics, what they taught us in school then, in secondary school or high school, it just, once you talk economics, they tell you it's supply and demand. And I don't think it has changed. So looking at it from that background, we are looking at the supply and demand. But again, there is the economic question. If you have an item you want to push into the market, or maybe the market is requesting for or needs, you need to find out whether that good or item or service is needed, who needs it, how many people, that's the quantity, the quality, what technology or method are you using for that, and of course, what impact is it making on the entire economy? Is it efficient? Is it inefficient? Is it affecting the standard and quality of life? That is the aspect of economics. Then in terms of energy, virtually we know that modern civilization is driven by energy. If you remove energy in entire civilization today, we'll go back to the days of our maybe great-great-great-great-grandfathers. That's why at the initial stage, man was using his hands as both the machine, the device, and the power. That's the energy to drive whatever he wants to do. If he wants to cut a stick, you can cut it with his bare hands. From there, we moved into mechanization, where he started using tools. And of course, at a later stage, he now needed something to power the tool so that he'll now remove his energy or reserve his energy for some other things. At a higher level, automation was introduced. That is how you move through civilization, and you have different levels of atomicity in our activities. So I'm sure that our lecturer today will do justice to that. Permit me also to say that we want to look at the role of energy economics in zero energy transition. Until very recently, some of us did not quite, I'm talking about myself, what exactly we mean by zero energy transition. I'm sure the guest lecturer will tell us more about that. Then, of course, the need for a managerial framework. To do what? What would the managerial framework do? Then it actually we expect, we hope, he will propose that managerial framework. Is it for who? The developing or the developed economies? Please join me as we listen attentively to our guest lecturer today, Dr. Kaide, to do justice to this topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, Mr. Chairman, for that beautiful welcome remarks. I would like to call on the special guest of honor for today to come and give us a goodwill message. And this is no other person than Dr. Mercy Iraganachi, who is the University Librarian, University of Ibadan. She is a distinguished Nigerian librarian and academic administrator, and currently the University Librarian at University of Ibadan, Oyo State, Nigeria. She holds a PhD in Information Resources Management from Babcock University, Ilishan-Remo, along with a Master of Library Science, MLS, and a BA in Communication and Language Arts from University of Ibadan. Dr. Mercy Iraganachi is also a certified librarian. So, Dr. Iraganachi, please, it's time you give us your goodwill message for today's lecture. Thank you, ma.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you for having me. Good evening. I want to warmly recognize the chairman of this occasion, Professor C.O. Anyeche, National Chairman of the Nigerian Institution of Industrial Engineers, a division of the NSC. I also recognize our esteemed guest of honor, Mr. Clemson Ayegbusi, Education and Cultural Affairs Specialist at the United States Department of State, Consulate General, Lagos. I recognize the host of this remarkable event, Professor V.O. Oladokun. And also I want to recognize the distinguished guest lecturer and all participants from around the world who are virtually connected to this lecture. Once again, I say good evening to everyone. Please, you will permit me to begin this goodwill message by expressing my sincere appreciation to the host of this program and his dedicated team of organizers for not only creating such a timely and relevant event, but also for graciously inviting me to be a part of it. The topic of today's lecture is both important and urgent, not only for those directly involved in the energy sector, but for all of humanity. The decarbonization of the atmosphere, resulting in ozone layer depletion and culminating in global warming, remains one of the most pressing challenges facing our planet. In response, global efforts are being intensified through initiatives such as transition to renewable energy sources, afforestation, and the prevention of deforestation. At the heart of these efforts lies energy economics, a critical driver in the petroleum sector's transition to net zero. By promoting cost-effective, sustainable and scalable solutions, energy economics enables us to strike a balance between economic growth and environmental responsibility. For the petroleum industry to remain viable and globally competitive in this era of decarbonization, we must therefore be there must be a deliberate alignment with forward-thinking investment strategies, robust policy frameworks, and continuous technological innovations. Without preempting the insights that the guest lecturer will be sharing, I'd like to encourage us all to listen attentively and engage thoughtfully with the content of today's presentation. That's because it promises to be an enlightening and impactful session. I wish you all a successful and rewarding lecture, and I'd like to thank you once again for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma. That was a
Yeah.
very sweet and loaded goodwill message. Thank you once again for coming, and hope to call on you soon again. Now we move
No
on
problems.
to having the goodwill message from the guest of honor. The guest of honor for today's lecture is no other person than Mr. Clemson Ayeguse, a Nigerian public diplomacy expert and researcher, currently serving as the established opinion leaders specialist at the United States Consulate General, Lagos, Nigeria. He focuses on fostering educational and cultural exchanges between the United States and Nigeria. And he has over 16 years of professional experience. Mr. Clemson Ayeguse, sir, you're welcome to today's program, and it's time we listen to your goodwill message for us. The floor is yours. Thank you, sir.
I'm not sure it's yet in the house. Maybe when it's around. Not sure. I can't.
Is there anybody in the house that is representing Mr. Clemson Ayeguse?
Not yet. Not yet. Let's move on.
Okay, thank you, sir. While we await the arrival of Mr. Clemson Ayeguse, our guest of honor, I would like to call on one of the latest graduate engineers of the year, and that's Engineer Jukal Adefokun. And he's the immediate past ISA president, that is the Industrial Engineering Students Association. He's the immediate past president, and he just graduated. So he's around in the house to take the citation of the guest lecturer for today. Juka, over to you. Let's have you read the citation for the guest lecturer.
Thank you very much, Ma, for that introduction. Please permit me to stand on already existing protocols as I pull up the citation for Dr. Coyote. I'll be sharing my screen now. Just to confirm, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
sir, thank you.
You can put it in presentation mode.
Yes, I will do. All right, so the
Yes.
citation for Dr. Kayode Kelvin goes thus.
Time is like an ever-rolling stream. Let's hear you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Dr. Kayode Kelvin Orisarami, originally from Edo State, Nigeria, began his undergraduate journey in 2004 in the Department of Industrial and Production Engineering, IP, at the renowned University of Ibadan, UI. Through his dedication and exceptional work ethic, he graduated top of his BSc class in 2009 with first-class honors. Following some years of industry experience, he resumed his academic journey in 2014, undertaking a master's degree program in industrial and production engineering at the same university. His unwavering dedication and pursuit of excellence led him to graduate as a top MSc student in 2016. In 2019, his remarkable achievements over the years earned him the esteemed Hong Kong PhD Fellowship Scheme, awarded by the Research Grants Council of Hong Kong to honor exceptional PhD candidates globally. The Industrial and Systems Engineering Department at the Hong Kong Polytechnic University also awarded him the PolyU PhD Studentship and Research Tuition Scholarship. During his PhD at PolyU, Dr. Orisarami conducted pioneering research in natural gas engineering. This work earned him nominations for the Energy Transition Prize of the ENI Award and over 200 invitations to present his findings at international conferences. After completing his PhD in 2023, he was appointed postdoctoral fellow by the ISE department at PolyU. He now extends his doctoral work and contributes to designing a driving simulator for truck drivers in Hong Kong. His research focuses on inverse optimization, operations management, energy transition, circular economy, environmental management, and intelligent transportation systems. Thank you very much. That brings an end to the citation.
Thank you, our graduate engineer, Jukal. Our guest lecturer, the floor is yours. Everybody is waiting to hear from you. The topic for today is loaded, and we know you will no doubt do thorough justice. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you everyone for inviting me to this alumni lecture series. It's really an honor to connect with my department because, to be honest, it all started from UI. So I'm always grateful for the opportunity this department gave me. Building a strong foundation from bachelor's all the way to masters. And for those who really know about my research, to be honest, my PhD was an extension of my master's research project. So for that, I'm really grateful to the department and also to my MSc supervisor, Professor Luleye, who is like my godfather. Yeah. So I really want to thank you all for the strong background you granted me all these years. It really helped me navigate my PhD journey here in Hong Kong without stress. So it's really an honor for this invitation, and I will go straight to my lecture. I'm going to make it really brief because it's more like it's a rigorous mathematical optimization approach. So I won't really spend much time on the mathematical development of the models, but I'll just go straight to the optimization technique. So permit me to share my screen. Okay. Okay. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen. I'm sure others too should be able to see your screen.
Okay. So the title of my lecture, as I last stated, is the role energy economics has to play in advancing the petroleum sector towards net zero. So I'll start with the motivations for this study. Actually, this is like an extension of my PhD thesis. So I'm currently working on this, and I'm developing like a framework which we've tested using data sets from OPEC. And to be honest, it really depicts the real life scenario in the oil and gas industry. So the first motivation for our study is, of course, climate change and global warming, and of course, all about reducing carbon emissions and mitigating air pollution. And then,
So can you put it in presentation mode?
Okay.
Now we can cover the whole screen.
Okay. How about now? Is it?
Great.
Much better.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. So these are the motivations for our study. And of course, the fourth one is really important, power outages in OPEC member nations, for example, Nigeria and Venezuela. And of course, the much anticipated shift towards renewable energy sources and leading to a decreased reliance on fossil fuels. So as an introductory background, energy economies mean several things to a lot of people, but in terms of energy, it deals with the production, the distribution, and the usage of energy resources in a cost-effective manner. So, although it is growing in applied economies, but there are some area of overlaps with engineering management and applied sciences. So, talking about the intersection, engineering management and energy economies, we are referring to cost benefit analysis, of course, efficiency, optimization, and risk management. Then the area of overlapping between, applied science and energy economies can also be found in these domains: environmental sustainability, resource efficiency, and technological innovation. However, in terms of oil and gas production, we are restricting the definition on one particular terminology, which is how we can balance the energy gains and losses throughout the oil production processes, because it's all about maximizing the energy gains and minimizing the losses. So we're trying to strike a balance that will lead to optimal decision making in the industry. So everything about the framework we're about to introduce or we are currently working on is how we can boost energy gains and at the same time cut down the losses. Because these losses always come in the form of carbon emissions, leading, greenhouse global warming and all other as well as waste into the atmosphere. So we are for this entire lecture, we are really defining energy economics purely in terms of how we can strike an optimal balance between the energy gains and losses in the oil production process. So, as an example, some of the energy gains in oil production, firstly, we need to talk about the crude oil, which is sold to, as exports and also for domestic consumption. Another gain should be the refined petroleum products, gasoline, kerosene, diesel, and others. And of course, liquefied natural gas. And the other fourth type, which is reinjection, by reinjecting gas for yielding more crude oil during the production process. And the last one, which is a very important source of energy, is how we can channel gas for turbine power generation. For instance, how we could really resolve our power supply in Nigeria. So these are common examples of the kind of energy gains we are dealing with when we talk about oil production. So the aim of the mathematical approach here is how we can maximize all forms of gains in the production process and at the same time cutting down the losses. So it's like we are dealing with dual objective optimization technique here. So as an example, let's consider the three main sources of energy losses in oil production. The first is oil space, which of course leads to loss of oil revenue. Then gas flaring, which is the largest and most dangerous form of energy loss in the industry. And then we have the third type of energy loss, which is drilling waste. So all three, the aim of our optimization approach is how we can cut down all three losses, minimize all three losses, and at the same time maximizing the gains, because that's from a managerial perspective. So we talk about how we can balance these energy gains and losses. So for energy gains, OPEC member nations can always maximize their oil output in the confines of their production capacity, quotas, and all other storage capacities. However, we know there is still some challenge for some OPEC member nations. Take, for instance, Nigeria, even currently Libya, we are still strongly to max out our production quota. So that I see some technical challenges. But of course, we know there are still underlying causes for that. Then we can also talk about the state-of-the-art technological advancement that have been made in the recent 5 years to cut down energy losses in production. So we briefly consider these technological advancements. So the first category refers to state-of-the-art technologies to handle oil spills. Although these are not really available in oil developing nations like, for instance, Nigeria, but I think if you take an example of Saudi Arabia or even Iran, despite all the economic sanctions, some of them, these governments, they can see boast of adopting some of these technologies. So the first is automated systems, which can easily pinpoint leakages or vulnerabilities, speed points in production, enabling some form of preventive maintenance. While the second category is magnetic nanostructures. So this use the principle of magnetism to separate oil from water. So this provides some kind of a greener solution uh, for for the production processes. So the third category is ultra absorbent sponges and the use of smart filters which rely on gravity for separating oil from water. So these technologies are really promising, but we need to be realistic. The cost of the they come with high upfront costs. So this is one of the reasons why sometimes, even though we complain that we have some challenges in our oil and gas sector, the truth remains that the devaluation of currencies or some other political instability issues in our country still makes it difficult for the government to adopt some of these technologies. Even the likes of Saudi Arabia and even US, not all of them can, have all these technologies. At oil fields, so they are quite expensive. So it's not really feasible in the short term, but we are considering something for long term. So these are the reasons why a lot of experts in this industry would say it's too early for now to say a country like maybe Nigeria, Venezuela, Libya, or maybe even Algeria can really adopt these technologies. They are quite promising, but the truth remains that the installation, the capital cost, everything is, that's not, it's not really feasible for now. So we take a look at this first automated system. So this is like a flow chart, how it works. So it makes use of a remote sensing to detect oil spills. Across any waterbed. So there's a sea floor there. Then even the oil pipe, the satellite signal, and so it's like a simulation system. So this is quite available. Only, for instance, I think currently only Saudi Aramco, is currently adopting this technology right now. So it's still part of the reason why stuff like oil spills are super rare in Saudi Arabia. So because Saudi Aramco is highly, they've gone so far to adopt the latest technology to really monitor, detect, and minimize all forms of oil spills. So it's quite promising, but it requires a lot of capital, yeah, and support from the government too. Now, talking about magnetic nanostructures, so this is just like this diagram just shows the principle behind it. So it uses magnetism to kind of like separate the oil from water. So this is how it works. So, okay, we have three components here: magnetic nanoparticles, nanocomposites, and magnetic CNTs. So all of them are really promising, and a lot of researchers now in this in my field now are really working on how we can introduce some of these technologies to developing nations, but they really know it's not, it's too early for now, but they are quite promising. Now, talking about the second category of waste in the industry, which is another source of energy loss, refers to drilling waste. So I listed three state-of-the-art technologies here, which are, for instance, the first one is nanofiltration and reverse osmosis. They are being used to kind of minimize all forms of drilling waste. Then, of course, we have the use of robotic systems to streamline drilling, thereby reducing human errors and waste. Then, of course, the third category is quite promising, where you can actually convert drilling waste to some kind of value-added products. And this, in turn, promotes environmental management. So this category is quite robust because they've been tested in places like Canada. Yeah, some Canadian oil fields have adopted this and it's really working. Yeah. So again, the capital the upfront cost is quite high. So I don't really know at what point in time developing nations like Nigeria can really adopt these technologies. So we've been saying this for the past maybe 5 to 10 years now. But the reality is that we need more time. Yeah, yeah. Then talking about gas flaring, which is quite alarming. There are three main technological innovations here. So the first one is what I really worked on during my PhD program, gas to power technology, whereby it's all about generating electricity from gas using turbines. Then compressors is quite common in some Scandinavian countries, even in Europe, whereby the compressors are used to kind of like channel excess gas and then through pipelines to required locations or maybe markets. Then gas to liquid is quite promising, of course. We are already adopting this in Nigeria right now. That's the source of LNG and all other um, um, uh, products. So, for instance, this is the schematic diagram of the gas to liquid process. So, at the bottom, we have cracking process giving you three kinds of products there: diesel, naphtha, and paraffin. So this is what for now. I think this is quite. We can really adopt this in the short term, so it's really promising. Yeah. So, but the other two, gas to air technology and gas compressors, I think it's all about channeling some of the oil revenue into acquiring this technology because a lot of nations, even here in Hong Kong, gas is the main source of power. Yeah, gas and coal. I know the Chinese use coal, but in major main parts of developed nations now, main states, promises, they rely on gas. Yeah, because it's quite cheap and it's really affordable. So I really believe that Nigeria can really adopt this. Yeah, this will really go a long way in resolving our power supply crisis, which has persisted for so many years. So now let's talk about the challenges. What are the challenges? That will likely come across. So, like I've stated earlier, it's quite expensive. These technologies are quite innovative, but it requires significant financial investment. So this is a barrier for developing nations. Then, of course, infrastructural problem. Many developing nations will lack the infrastructure to support the implementation of these technologies. And of course, the technical expertise, which require the maybe hiring experts. So, of course, this could be scarce in certain regions. And then we also have regulatory barriers, which pertains to maybe government policies or inconsistent or inadequate environmental regulations. Now, the other three uh, limitation or challenges are as follows: the limited access to technology, so which requires the challenge in acquiring some of these cutting-edge technologies due to trade restrictions or intellectual property issues, and of course, resistance to change. I'll take, for example, gas flaring in the industry. The reason why some nations, not just developing nations, the reason why it's quite difficult for some nations to curb gas flaring to minimal, to a minimum level is that gas flaring happens to be the cheapest technique of burning excess gas. So it's quite easy to just flare gas, knowing very well that it doesn't cost you any amount of money to just burn excess gas. So that has been the tradition in so many countries. So this is why I stated it here that the resistance to change is another problem, another barrier. And then we are talking about energy demand pressure. Now, I know a lot of people, even my friends in the, working on renewable energy projects here in PolyU, a lot of them have been singing so many songs saying, we don't need oil and gas in the next decade or two. But I don't really think they are totally wrong because the demand is increasing with population growth. So our population is expanding. So even though we are pushing for a net zero future, where all of us will be adopting renewable energy technologies, I'm quite sure the oil demand will still increase. Yeah, a lot of people are still making that forecast. So with the energy demand, it comes with some kind of pressure. So that causes another I mean poses some challenge. So that's why I stated that balancing the need for energy production with environmental considerations can be challenging in nations with growing energy demands. So with population growth comes with higher energy demands. So these challenges highlight the critical role of managerial expertise in tackling production losses, both from theory and practice. So this serves as the entire motivation for our current study here with my supervisor. So we develop a mathematical framework. It's quite complex, so I skipped a lot of the mathematical derivation and stuff. So I kind of like summarize all the entire framework into 5 key steps. So step one, my professor introduced this concept of peak efficiency. So we agreed on this, that peak efficiency here refers to, because while we are using a linear program, which is a DEA, data development analysis, we realize something that when you say let's say for instance, we did so many permutations. It is possible when we use a set of input and output data for a particular for the DA program, Nigeria could be efficient, in one scenario, and then when you evaluate again, considering another scenario, Nigeria will become inefficient. So after much debate and arguments, we kind of like agreed on one concept, peak efficiency, saying that an energy efficient OPEC member nation is one that is considered efficient across all scenarios. So if we're considering two scenarios for mathematical analysis, so before we stand, an OPEC member nation is highly efficient, or let's say energy efficient by definition of peak efficiency here, we are saying that that member must be efficient across scenario 1 and scenario 2. So this definition really justified our subsequent steps. Then 2, we applied an inverse optimization technique by minimizing the energy losses, because we realized that even when a member is deemed to be efficient across maybe two considered scenarios, we still observe when we apply a mathematical technique, we see observe some energy loss. So this was the reason why we concluded that at all times, throughout our methodology, we are only considering an energy efficient member. So step 2 was all about minimizing the energy losses associated with increased oil production, because increase in oil production always comes with more waste, more gas flaring, more energy losses. So the mathematical framework we designed, step 2 was to minimize all forms of energy losses, be it gas flaring, drilling waste, or oil spill. So we're able to minimize all three forms of energy losses in the production process. Then step 3, step 3 was quite interesting, because while we are at the end of step 2, we realized that, by application of our technique, our proposed methodology, we observed that some members actually had zero energy losses. So that means that's a state of perfect that's a global solution. But then my sponsor asked me that, are you sure we should stop at step 3? Because it's still possible that even though they are recording no energy losses, how about we will now bridge our technique with the conservation of with the energy conservation principle, which is first law of thermodynamics, and then we proceeded using step 4. So step 3 is all about forming a subset of OPEC members with zero energy losses, and then we took it to step 4, and we defined three states of environmental sustainability. So by application of the first law of thermodynamics, we define super efficiency as energy gain, which is a plus. And then we define efficiency loss as energy loss, which is, net energy loss. And then net zero, which is the state of, what we are really aiming at. We define net zero in our analysis and methodology as a state of break-even energy transfer. That means all gains will cancel out all losses, because that's the cornerstone of energy economics. And then step 5, we agreed on one definition, saying a global net zero refers to an ideal state where efficient, not just efficient, energy efficient OPEC members, based on step 1, achieve a balance. All total energy gains will equal total losses. So this is how we mathematically define net zero from the perspective of mathematical optimization. Inverse optimization. We bridge this technique with the first law of thermodynamics, which is energy conservation principle. So, like I said, the mathematical framework is quite rigorous. So that's why I just keep all the derivations, and I had to just summarize it using these 5 key steps. So I'll jump straight into the solutions, define this now, then I'll come back and see how they relate to all these 5 steps. So we did the experiment for 3 production years. So on the first column on the extreme left refers to energy efficient OPEC members. So from Angola all the way to UAE, all 1, 2, 3, all nations, all OPEC member nations here are energy efficient. That means step 1, they were efficient across all considered scenarios. Then step 2, they had zero energy losses. And then we now applied our energy conservation principle, which is the first law. We kind of integrated our first law with our optimization framework. And so, to our surprise, we came up with this result. So we realized that all the members here recorded net energy losses, except Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. So this led to our new definition of environmental sustainability rankings. So it is obvious from our analysis here, from this first production year, that Saudi Arabia topped the rankings, followed by Kuwait, because both of them recorded energy gains. So these are optimal energy gains at the end of our algorithm. Actually, we also designed the algorithm to save us time, because we kept running this experiment for over 3 months. Yeah. So at the end of the day, we realized that for the first production year, only Saudi Arabia and Kuwait came out on top. Now, that means all other member nations here with negative net energy transfers, you could see this is the reason why optimization times, mathematical programming sometimes cannot really give you, we can't just be satisfied with an optimal solution and say, this is Hannah, this is where we should stop. We had to push it further, take it to a higher level before we realize that there were actually net energy gains and net energy losses in the production process, even when we applied the inverse optimization technique for step 2 and step 3. So we did the same experiment for a second production year, and so this is the result from the production year. Okay, hold on. Now, net zero year, we stated this. We added this rule. Overall net energy year refers to the sum of all the energy gains and losses to measure the deviation from net zero. So at the end of year 1, we had a negative. So this is that is like 297,162.1 megawatts hour. And then we repeated the same process for the second production year. We had larger deviation, which is minus 328,701.42. What's similar here is that Saudi Arabia topped the rankings one more time. However, Iran came second here. So, and Nigeria 7, and then Iraq 8. And then we'll do the same for the third production year, and we had something similar, minus 328,685.21 megawatts hour. So it is obvious, based on the overall net energy transfer, if we are to make our conclusion based on these findings, then we could say that year 1 was the most promising, or is the best result, because this shows the least deviation from a net zero when you add up all the gains and losses. So at the end of the day, we're able to determine and say, okay, we can do this analysis for maybe 10 years. So that's what we're currently doing now, because we also want to publish it in a journal. So we want to do it for as much as 1 full decade and see how we can track the progress of OPEC member nations towards a net zero. So based on our results, we can really say that the concept of net zero based on energy economics here is it's a distant prospect, because you could see that even the best year, which is production year 1, we see as something quite huge. The division is quite much. We're having 297, 162. However, in terms of individual performances, for year 1, Saudi Arabia clearly topped the chart. Even for year 2, then something common across all 3 production years is that Saudi Arabia was the top performer, while Iraq was the least performer, because for production year 3, Saudi Arabia is still 1, Iraq is 2, and then when we go to production year 2, Iraq is still coming last, Saudi Arabia 1, and then Iraq for production year 1, Iraq is still 7, and Saudi Arabia 1. So this by doing this, because I also did this same experiment for like 3 more years, and at all times I had Saudi Arabia topping the chart, Iraq bottom. So this was how we validated our results. So with this technique, we can now introduce this concept of environmental sustainability rankings. And then my supervisor here was really impressed with our finding, and he said, fine, we can consider publishing it and then see how we can present it maybe to any oil and gas conference, maybe in Texas or any other invitation we get. So this is currently what we are working on right now. So we're able to, for the first time in literature, we're able to develop this framework for tracking the progress of OPEC member nations toward net zero, purely from the standpoint of energy economics. So it's quite rigorous, but at the end of the day, we realize it's worth developing. Yeah. So this is just a summary of our research findings, and then I'll conclude the lecture by just summarizing these few points. So net zero efforts, of course, is to ensure sustainability in global energy systems. However, for some developing OPEC nations, the net zero goals are still remote. So what we've done so far is to create a managerial framework that can be able to track the progress of the collective progress of OPEC member nations towards net zero. So this model also improve energy economics in these nations. And with this framework, this will surely enable experts in the industry, policymakers to monitor, not just to monitor, but also accelerate the progress toward net zero goals. And we're also able to share this with one of our friends in the US who is currently working in Texas. And he was really happy with this mathematical framework. So we are trying to see how we can run the same experiments for multiple years, because actually I use the same data set from my thesis. So we are looking at how we can use maybe um, data set from the last 5 years. Like we can consider 2020 all the way to 2025, run the same process again, and then submit our findings to any reputable journal. So this brings an end to my lecture, and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kayode Orisharemi, our guest lecturer for today. You have really done justice to the topic, the role of energy economics in advancing the petroleum sector towards net zero. Thank you so much. It was really an insightful lecture and beautifully delivered. Before I call on our guests of honor for today to give us the goodwill messages, I will quickly like to recognize the presence of Professor R.A. Oderinde, the MacArthur Grant Liaison Officer, MGLO, for University of Ibadan. Professor Oderinde, sir, you're welcome. We recognize you. Thank you for joining the lecture. Yes, it's time to reflect on the lecture by way of passing our comments and taking questions and answers from the guest lecturer. But before we open the floor for questions, I will quickly like to reflect on the lectures. To start with, today we saw how economic instruments and policies are pivotal in pushing petroleum operations towards sustainability and carbon neutrality. Also, from the lecture, we let me quickly go through my notes. We have seen that energy economies can play a key role in achieving net zero emissions by guiding how we produce, distribute, and consume energy in more efficient and sustainable ways. You know, carbon pricing, market design and regulation, among other things. Also, we have seen how energy economies provide data, tools, and frameworks needed to design policies and markets that align financial incentives with climate goals. So in addition, we can conveniently say that net zero is not just a buzzword, it's a pivotal framework for combating climate change and securing a sustainable future. While the pathway to net zero is filled with scientific, political, and economic challenges, it also offers opportunities for innovation, job creation, and global cooperation. Thank you once again, Dr. Kayode Orisharemi. Let's take the goodwill message from the special guest of honor before we open the floor for questions and answers. Dr. Mercy Iraganaki, our university librarian, please, it's time we have your goodwill message after the post-lecture goodwill message. The floor is yours, ma. Dr. Mercy Iraganaki. Thank you. Your goodwill message.
Me too. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now, ma.
Okay. Like I said at the beginning, that the lecture is very timely, and it is of a lecture that is not just beneficial to the petroleum sector, but to humanity as a whole. We have listened and we have heard, and I'm sure the experts and all of us have learned one lesson or the other this evening. And all we need to do is not just be hearers of the word, but doers of what we are able to do. So it is left for us to take what we have garnered from all that the lecturer has said this evening and begin to work with, hoping that in a short future, the nearest future, we will have the society, the kind of atmosphere, the kind of economics that we desire as a nation. And knowing that this is what we all look forward to. So I like to appreciate the guest lecturer for serving us with these sumptuous academic meals tonight. I want to say that we are sincerely satisfied, and we do not take this for granted. We say a very big thank you for bringing us all the insights that you have dished out to us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, ma. We now call on the chairperson for today's lecture to also give his remarks on the lecture. Thank you, sir. Professor Anyache, let's hear from you, sir.
Okay, thank you, moderator. I will listen. I hope you're hearing me. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Loud and
Okay,
clear.
thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, the lecturer has done a great job. So thank you very much for that. He took us through climate change, energy economics, spoke about the efficiency analysis and optimization of cost risk management, focusing essentially on how to cut down losses. And of course, talked about energy gain. When you now have energy gain and energy loss, then of course that is net zero. Of course, there are challenges, costs, infrastructure, technical expertise, and of course, entry barriers. These are pure economic issues, and of course, technological as well. Limited access to resources, resistance to change, and so on. And finally, he gave us a model. And I thank you very much for sparing us the rigors of the mathematics. They just delve down to what most of us will appreciate. So I thank you very much for that. I will, when the time comes, want us to look at this energy, net zero, net gain, and of course, all the whole of this with air quality, because that's an important aspect when it comes to managing energy, especially from the petroleum industry. Of course, you know, the fumes, all those carbon stuff. I was once sometime, I visited somewhere in Bayelsa. I won't tell you what we went there for. We went to marry a woman, a lady. And I can tell you that for the whole night, everywhere was bright. When it wouldn't get dark, I started asking a question, what's happening? They say gas flaring. And that was the first time I saw it live. 24 hours, no darkness. In Nigeria, well, that's a couple of years ago. I don't know what it is like now. So the issue he has presented are really germane and they are real. And for an economic developing nation like us, there are even more challenges. So I thank you very much for that. I will want to maybe later ask how best to simplify the model. I hope it's scalable. If it's scalable, then we should be able to have it big scale, large scale, and so on. And that is one of the ways I think we should be able to market it. Because if you are looking at the big ones all the time, then of course the developing economies will have a lot of problems. But most models, especially those focused towards solving problems these days, and I'm happy you are an industrial engineer through and through, scalability is an important issue. I hope you're bringing in scalability into this so that the cost, the infrastructure, the technical expertise, entry barriers, and all those things will not hinder the application of the model. Thank you very much. Later I will make some other comments. Thank you if I have the chance.
Thank you, sir, for the brief remarks, yet rich remarks. Thank you so much, sir. We appreciate that. Without much ado, I would like to call on the guest of honor, if he's on ground now, is available now, Mr. Clemson Ayebusi. If he's available now, let's hear the goodwill message from his hand. If it's not, then we proceed to the questions and answers section. Mr. Clemson Ayebusi, the special guest for today, the guest of honor for today. Are you in the house? Okay, no, it's not available and no representative. So let's proceed to the questions and answers section. Our guest speakers are, before I throw it to the house, I would like you to shed more light on how energy pricing models can influence investment in low carbon petroleum technologies. Thank you.
So, thank you for your question. Yeah, during my PhD program, somebody raised that question, but I realized it's more about I would suggest like another approach, game theory, but I realized back then that I still lack some foundation in pure economics. Yeah, because pricing models and all related methodologies, I think even right here in my university, those fully grounded in accounting or maybe pure economics are really they have that leverage. Yeah, but I think it's quite promising. However, my own approach is purely from just applied optimization. Yeah, yeah. So, but hopefully, it's something I'm considering. I really want to look into it later because I actually thought about it at the start of my program, but I realized I still need some kind of uh, uh, preliminary background in maybe economic, not really economics, but something to do with like accounting. Yeah, yeah. But I assure you, I'm looking into that. Yeah, for a future publication. Yes. Yeah.
Dr. Risharemi. I can see Dr. Kolawole from the Department of Industrial and Production Engineering, University of Ibadan, raising his hand. Let's have the question from Dr. Kolawole, please.
Yes, thank you for giving the opportunity. And I want to thank Dr. Calvin for doing justice to the topic. Well done. I just have one or two questions. From the data you presented, we see that Nigeria and one other country kept on being at the lower end consistently. And Saudi Arabia consistently maintained the first position there. So my question is, what is Nigeria and probably the other country too? What are we doing that is making us remain in that position? And what are those countries, Saudi Arabia, what are they doing that made them to remain on top? So that possibly it's a team we can learn from. And then that's question one. Then secondly, I think towards the end of the question, towards the end of the presentation, it appears, if I got it right, that maybe Nigeria can still continue to manage with that. If I got something right very well, as if maybe we may not be able to change that thing for now or so. I'm not too sure whether I got that right. So why is that so? Okay. So these are my two questions.
Yeah, thank you for your questions. So really, the first problem I think we are really facing in Nigeria, talking about oil and gas production, is one, the oil theft is still there. Okay, that's one challenge. Then secondly, we have the ninth largest gas reserves in the world. So it's as if maybe out of abundance, it has become a tradition, a very bad practice to just burn excess gas up. So the reason for the low ranking of Nigeria across all three production years, when I did further investigation, even my supervisor here he asked me one time, say, Kevin, what's wrong with your country? I said, I don't really know, but I think there's so much waste in our oil and gas sector. So this can also be traced back to, although corruption is there, we know it's something we can't just ignore. But however, I think out of abundance, we just waste resources. Yeah, because when you look at that table, only Saudi, maybe Iran, maybe only three members there can boast of more gas than Nigeria. So it's like we have so much excess gas. So it became like a practice, a norm over decades to just burn it away. So gas has much more wasted gas or fled gas has so much value because we can channel it for electricity. So this is the reason why Nigeria is still at the bottom of the run. And now, when you go to Iraq is worse. Iraq is terrible. Yeah. Because I have a former colleague here who was also from Iraq. He was also working in related field. And he said, if we Nigerians are complaining that Iraq is a mess, he was saying that the economy, the Iraqi economy is so bad right now that they lack so much infrastructure or let's say technologies to really cut down waste. So drilling waste is all-time high. Gas flaring is worse in Iraq. So when I checked the data obtained from OPEC, I just realized that Iraq on a consistent basis, they burn so much gas, so much. Now, talking about Saudi Arabia is, I know they have very strict policies in Saudi Arabia. Like, there are really penalties for wastage in Saudi Arabia. They also have this advantage. Saudi Arabia, up to now, they have the cheapest cost of production. Producing 1 barrel of oil is Saudi Arabia records the lowest, the cheapest. So it's really economical for them to produce and make so much again. Like, for instance, during the pandemic, when all major companies lost so much money, due to the oil price crash, only Saudi Aramco recorded some profits. That's to tell you how robust their system is. So it's just like saying Saudi Arabia, apart from having strict policies, the oil is also much closer to the surface. So they don't really need to drill that deep to access the oil. So this is one advantage, something that's really helping Saudi Arabia. And this is the reason why sometimes some of them can even boast that if they should stop oil and gas production, they are okay for the next 50 to one of them who told me for a century. Yeah, I have a friend from Saudi Arabia who said the same thing, that they made so much money. So even though a large part of their country is made up of desert, but they have this economic advantage that the oil is so much close to the surface. They don't really need to drill deep. So that also saves them all these forms of production waste. Yeah. So it's just like you channeling, you just drill deep and you get the oil and then you just channel it. So all forms of gas there is being channeled for power or other use in Saudi Arabia. So this is the reason why even one of my published papers in my PhD program, I did the mathematical competition. At all times, Saudi Arabia top the rankings. I mean, those guys are just too efficient. Yeah. So if you are working with Saudi Aramco, you realize that it's like a culture, a tradition here, and they have really really strict rules. Yeah, and it's when people say they are a little bit strict, but they know what they are doing. And oil theft is not a problem in Saudi Arabia. You can't even think of it. Yeah. So, but we have excess of that in our system in Nigeria. So the oil theft, the bunkering is still there, and government is not really willing. But we believe that with time, things will change for good. Because I'm not really happy with the position of the ranking of Nigeria. In all analysis, I just find us at the bottom of the rank, next to Iraq. It doesn't really speak well of our oil and gas sector. And realizing that we are still facing power supply challenges up to this present age, I mean, that's really cause for immediate action. Yeah. So even in Port Harcourt, my friends Port Harcourt said the same thing. The gas flaring it's just getting worse. Yeah. Even though they lie about it sometimes that, oh, we're able to cut down gas flaring to acceptable levels. No, but when you check the data from OPEC, it's still getting higher. So it's just like saying, out of abundance, we just waste resources. Yeah. So this is the problem we are having. This is the reason why, because the mathematical framework, I just realized that at the end of the day, what was really helping Saudi Arabia to top the ranking is that when I did the optimization, when I did the iteration, the experiments, the net loss pertaining the net energy loss from gas flaring is the least. I mean, it's so low in Saudi Arabia. Even when we use the mathematical model to minimize it, it's extremely small. But for Nigeria, it's still large. So this is the main source because the drilling waste and the oil space don't really account for much energy loss like gas flaring. So this gas flaring is the main culprit here. Let's call it that way. So this is the reason why we are losing not just energy, we're also losing money because gas is money. I mean, we can even channel this gas, maybe sell it to other economies. Like I remember the time this Russia and the Ukraine war started. That was 2 years ago. It would have been an advantage, a big advantage for Nigeria to really take advantage, channel this wasted gas to European nations. But they claim that we don't have a pipeline connecting, going across Africa to Europe. So, but that notwithstanding, it was like Europe was in need of gas back then. Yeah. So that was why Eni and other oil companies started making this. They were negotiating with Algeria. They were in Algeria. They were also in, I can't remember this other country. I think there's another African nation where they discovered a huge amounts of oil, like in the last 5 years. So any oil company, the China giants, they were moving from nation. They were even striking deal with Saudi Arabia, but I'm not sure they would visit Nigeria during that period because Europe needed gas. They were approaching winter. That would have been a very big opportunity for Nigeria to really make so much money. But we just burn this gas. We just waste it. So it's like saying, as I've said earlier, out of abundance, we just waste resources. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
But I'm quite optimistic. Yeah, things will change. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was a beautiful response, our guest lecturer. I can also say Professor Victor Ladokun, the head of Department, Industrial and Production Engineering, University of Ibadan, raising his hand. Is our host. And
thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Actually, my question is, it's what Dr. Kolawole raised. I know in a very slightly different form. I was curious to know what was the biggest element of gain in Saudi Arabia system. You mentioned different area where you could have energy gain. So I was curious that which one was there. In our Pareto analysis, we want to know the critical field. That's what, and I think that when you are looking at the data, which one do you think was more responsible for their consistent performance? Then in Nigeria, when you look at our data, if you are to focus on one item that can maybe drive us close to net zero, where should we advise the government to, are we going to get the biggest saving in terms of cutting down the waste? I know we may not be able to address all the elements, but what we normally do is to do our ABC analysis and focus on the critical field. From the data, your insight into that data, which area do you think that to advise government to focus on now, where we can quickly get impact in terms of saving?
Okay. Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Prof. Yeah. So, when looking at the data, two key areas that can really help us achieve more gains. One, gas flaring, and two, refinery. Because part of the energy gains, when we are doing the optimization, experiments, we also took into consideration refining capacity, the throughput, and refined products. To be honest, as of now, of all OPEC member nations, Saudi Arabia has the largest refinery capacity of all. So they are making not just money from exported crude, they're also making so much money, revenue from refined petroleum products. Then there's no such thing like scarcity in Saudi Arabia. No. It's unheard of. That's like, it's not, it's unusual. So two key areas that can really help us achieve more gains, climb the ranking is we need to cut down our gas flaring. And the easiest way to do that is to just channel it to power, for power generation. That will really boost our rankings. Then secondly, we really need to work on upgrading our refinery. Although Dangote refinery has been, has been working for the past 2 years. I checked OPEC data, was this some weeks ago, and I realized that officially the Dangote refinery commenced operation in 2023. Yeah, 2 years ago. However, I realized that up till now, even with the commencement of the refining process here at Dangote refinery, yeah, we see experience scarcity. Last year, even 2 years ago. So there's still a need. It's as if maybe the Dangote refinery can still not. I'm currently working on that. That's my next target now. I really want to investigate if Dangote refinery can really help us achieve some form of economic gain. So that's what my professor asked me to do, because I sent him the data and he looked at it. He said, okay, now the Dangote refinery has been operational since 2023, but still, why are you guys experiencing scarcity gasoline? And I said, I don't really know that. Maybe it's just politics, but we want to really investigate that. So that will be for my next research. Now, hopefully, I'll be commencing that maybe next month. So, but the two key areas, we're looking at the data from OPEC, where we can really achieve economic gains, energy gain, more money, more revenue. It's all about upgrading our refinery and also channeling excess gas for power supply. That is a win-win scenario, for the best scenario for Nigeria. That will really transform the nation a lot. But it's not left for our policymakers or the players in the petroleum sector to really, if they are willing, that they can do this. It's not really difficult. It's not. Because, for instance, channeling gas for power generation is one way we can, it's not just increasing power supply in Nigeria, but also achieving cleaner production. Yeah. So this is one key area. Gas flaring should be the number one area we need to work on. And secondly, the refinery. Those two key, because for those two data sets, Saudi Arabia just took the lead ahead of all. In fact, they have the largest refining capacity right now. I think it's even larger than only US. I think only the US has a larger refinery capacity compared to Saudi. Yes. So these are the two areas I know will really help transform our oil and gas sector. I'm 100% sure. Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
our guest lecturer, for that beautiful response. I cannot wait for the next phase of research to kickstart from your end, as promised. And I'm sure everybody in the house today will be willing to hear more when this phase of research commences. I hope you'll be able to come back and also speak on these new developments, the new frontiers. Let's take more questions from one or two other questions from the house, if there is any. The time is really fast spent. If there is any other question from the people in the house, let's take one last question. Thank you. Is there any question from anybody? No question yet. So without wasting time, we proceed to the final remarks. Dr. Kayode Orisharemi, please let's have your final remarks on today's lecture. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So I really want to appreciate everyone, starting with my HOD and I always give support and thanks to my professor. My MSc supervisor, Professor Lula, because he acted as a father for me back then during my master's program. So I'll not forget his encouragement, his support. So I'm always grateful. So I really appreciate what this department has done for me so far. Because to be honest, coming to Hong Kong, like they treated me like a superstar. Yeah, to be honest, because I've never received this kind of let me just say treatment in my life. Coming to Hong Kong, a lot of them kept they appreciated you and they appreciated our department. They said, "Wow,
I
that's a
think
really good school." So I on this on this basis, I really want to thank everybody, and I hope to be to also come back one more time to deliver more lecture on my progress, because I'm extending my doctoral thesis. So I really want to uh get more papers out. Yeah. So I really thank you all for your support and also for your invitation. Hopefully we have much more lectures to more intellectual discussions to share, yeah, in the future. Thank you all. Thanks.
Thank you so much once again. I would like to call on Engineer Paul Adeosun for the vote of thanks before we round up the lecture today. Engineer Paul Adeosun, please come and give us the vote of thanks for after today's lecture. Engineer Paul Adeosun, can you please unmute yourself and let's have the vote of thanks from you?
It appears the internet has kicked him out.
On ground?
So
the network is
maybe
not favorable from his hand.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay, the head of department, please, Professor.
Thank you.
Let's
I want to thank everybody. I want to thank our guest lecturer, Dr. Kayode. We are very proud of you. Thank you for being us proud. And see, Dr. Ade is telling us that you are a good ambassador. Want to keep the good. And also, I'm sure your performance will have more doors for our students who may be interested in coming over to Hong Kong to do PhD. Really appreciate it. And thank you for the good lecture. We hope that we'll collaborate on research that things together. I can see a lot of our father in the house here. Professor Lule is here. Prof, we want to hear your voice before we go. Just want Prof to say something, sir.
Good evening. I don't know if you can see me, but the audio is working. Kelvin, congratulations. Good to hear you and see that you are doing very well. You've been a good ambassador, and I think you also set the pace to even open the door for some other person, Temitope Kehinde, to come over there. If I remember well, when you were going, there were about 10 scholarships, and you were the only one in Africa. And I think you've done so very well. I'm proud of what you've done and linking your work to what you started out doing here. But the question posed for Nigeria to wake up, I don't know if we are seeing the connection and the network. Kelvin is in Hong Kong. You are alumnus. Michael Etisele is in Saudi Arabia, Aramco, and I think he gave us a lecture, I don't remember, last year or 2023 or something. And then we started zeroing in on Dangote, and Dangote has quite a number of our master's students employed. So in that ring, I hope you guys can deliver Nigeria somehow by suggesting a way out of the quagmire that we have. But we are very proud of you. I want to encourage you and thank you for what you are doing for even the students back here. I remember when I asked you a question about something for some of my students, you sent 20 papers to support them. So thanks for that. We hope we can continue the collaboration and we wish you well. And then I must thank everybody else. HOD, thanks for this time of learning from alumnus, what they're doing all over the world and showcasing what they can do and how to bring Nigeria out of the woods. We're in a global meltdown. And the earlier we know that we have to jump out of a pit, the better. Everybody's working on solutions. So it's time to work on solutions. So thank you so much. Thank you, HOD. Thank you, IP staff and all those and the contact team who have worked so hard. And then the guest of honor, the chairman, we're grateful for all you do for us all. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. We thank, I can also see some of our living ancestors here, Professor Danny Days in the house. Sir, we really appreciate you for finding time to be in our midst. We are very grateful. Professor Akambi, we are extremely grateful. Professor Oyetunji is in the house. We appreciate you. We appreciate all our professors, all our HODs. I can see Engineer Kola Fashola, a senior engineer in the house. Sir, we appreciate you for finding time to be in our midst. I see Lawrence Adedokun, one of our past chairperson and one of the people who have sponsored the alumni lecture over the years. We appreciate you. Yeah, we see Engineer Olanipekun, one of our seniors in the house, and we appreciate all of you for finding time to come. On behalf of the department, we thank you for joining us for this. If I didn't mention your name, please forgive me. I'm just scrolling up. We want to thank our special guest of honor, Dr. Iwa Ganashi, a very wonderful administrator. Is a friend of the department. She helped us to make sure our book of reading has been hosted on the UI repository. I remember I didn't even have to say, I just sent those things and she made sure they were posted. So we appreciate all of you. We appreciate our chairperson of today, national chairman of Nigerian Institution of Industrial Engineering. We appreciate our MC, moderator, the former head of department. We thank you all for coming, and we hope that next month, May the 9th, that you will all be coming. We'll be discussing another beautiful topic, and you can see the topic. I hope you can see the screen. As the 32nd edition of the alumni lecture is going to be very similar to what we have discussed today: renewable energy outlook and opportunities in Nigeria, rural electrification contest. And one of our old alumni will be giving the lecture. Is a big man in the industry, Olumide Fatoki. He graduated in 2023-24 session. So please, let's put it in our diary and let's all come for this event, part of our little way of interacting with the industry and also contributing to national development. So again, on behalf of the department, we appreciate all of you for coming. We wish you wonderful night rest. God bless you all, and bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Head of
Bye.
department, that was a very beautiful vote of thanks as well as beautiful closure. So please, like the HOD has rightly said, everybody, next second Friday in the month of May.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Dr. Adeyeye, it's good to
Yes,
hear your
sir.
voice. So
Ẹ pẹ̀lẹ́ o.